For over 1,000 years, his name has echoed between history and myth. Arthur, the warrior king who united a fractured Britain, the symbol of a lost, golden age. The story is burned into our imagination. Camelot's shining towers, the Knights of the Round Table, the sword, Excalibur, held aloft in victory. For 15 centuries, we have asked the same question. Was any of it real? History offers no clear answer. The earliest chronicles mention a Romano-British leader holding back Saxon invaders in the dark chaos of the 5th and 6th centuries. But the man himself remains a ghost. No contemporary records mention him. No grave has ever been found. No battlefield can be marked definitively with his name. The search has led to dead ends. Tintagel Castle, his supposed birthplace, offered signs of a wealthy settlement from the right era, but no proof of Arthur. In 1191, monks at Glastonbury Abbey claimed to find his tomb, a sensational discovery later exposed as a medieval hoax, a fundraising scheme after a devastating fire. Genealogists traced Welsh royal lines claiming descent, but the paper trails grew cold, written in ink centuries after the fact, not in the verifiable code of DNA. The scientific consensus began to settle like dust on an unopened tomb. Arthur was likely a myth, a composite figure, a symbol of longing for a perfect king. Searching for his DNA seemed as futile as searching for the genetic signature of Zeus. But what if the search was simply looking in the wrong places? What if, buried not in a castle or an abbey, but in a place tied to the oldest folklore, a single, tangible thread was waiting? This is a speculative history, a story of what could happen if modern science were to make one impossible discovery. Imagine this. Deep in Herefordshire lies a place the locals have long called King Arthur's Cave. For generations, folklore claimed the king took refuge here, that his warriors slept within its stone chambers. Pure myth, of course, but folklore often grows from a seed of truth. Early digs in the 1870s found Ice Age remains, mammoths and hyenas, but a new excavation, armed with 21st century technology, pushed deeper. Past the layers of prehistory, they found something the Victorian explorers had missed: deliberate burials, charred human bones, and cryptic work carvings. Using carbon dating, the team dated the organic material. The results were stunning. The remains were from the 5th and 6th century AD, the exact window of time when Arthur was said to have lived. But the most astonishing discovery wasn't the artifacts, it was the potential for what lay hidden inside them: ancient DNA. Extracting genetic material from 1,500-year-old bone is a monumental challenge. DNA degrades over time, shattering into useless fragments. But the team had an advantage. The cave's cool, stable environment provided perfect preservation. And they had found the key: the petrous bone. It is the densest bone in the human body, a biological vault that protects DNA from decay better than any other. In the lab, the process began. Every precaution was taken to prevent contamination from modern DNA. A single stray skin cell could corrupt the sample. Technicians isolated the surviving genetic fragments and fed them into ultra-sensitive sequencers, machines designed to read the faded ink of ancient life. The process took months. The team expected failure. Then, the results came in.
Not only was the DNA readable, but it was remarkably complete. They had recovered nuclear DNA, the full genetic blueprint from both parents. They ran a comparative analysis, cross-referencing the genetic profile against a vast database of ancient European DNA. The first hit placed the individual's ancestry squarely in Western Britain, the Celtic heartlands of Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany, the very regions where the Arthurian legend was born and burned brightest. But it was the Y chromosome data, the genetic line passed directly from father to son, that provided the bombshell. The sample belonged to an exceptionally rare haplogroup, a genetic signature that was not found in the general population of Roman Britain, nor among Saxon settlers. Instead, it clustered exclusively with samples from other 5th and 6th century elite burials in Wales, high-status individuals. More than that, the markers showed a strong correlation with lineages recorded in medieval Welsh royal genealogies. This wasn't a farmer. This wasn't a Roman soldier. Genetically speaking, this individual belonged to the ruling class of post-Roman Britain. We aren't saying we found King Arthur. What we're saying is that we may have found a genetic snapshot of his world. Someone from the right time, the right place, and crucially, the right social strata. This is a biological thread connecting us directly to the power brokers of the Arthurian age. And the DNA wasn't the only clue. Deeper in the cave, the team documented rock art that earlier surveys had missed. Crosses etched into the limestone, symbols of the new Christian faith sweeping Britain. But one image, hidden in a recess, was different. A carved figure holding a blade aloft. The style is primitive, but the posture is unmistakable. An image of offering or of victory. Could this be a 6th century precursor to the iconic image of Excalibur? Dating rock art is notoriously difficult, but by dating the mineral deposits that had formed over the carvings, the team established a time frame. The engravings were made roughly 1,500 years ago, contemporaneous with the burial. The evidence taken together painted an extraordinary picture. A high-status individual from a Celtic royal lineage deliberately buried in a sacred cave during the exact era of King Arthur. A cave decorated with ritualistic art, including iconography that resonates with the very legend itself. Of course, science demands skepticism, and a story this perfect warrants it. Contamination is a constant threat in ancient DNA research. Interpretation bias is a powerful force. When you're looking for a king, it's easy to see crowns everywhere. The carving could be a man holding a spear or a torch. The genetic link to royal lines relies on medieval texts that are themselves open to question.
Any single piece of this evidence is inconclusive. A rare haplogroup doesn't make you a king. A cave burial can mean many things. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary, repeatable evidence. DNA alone cannot crown a ghost. They're right to be cautious. That's why the power here isn't in any single element. It's in the convergence. The genetics, the archaeology, the folklore, and the radiocarbon dates. They all point to the same narrow window in time and the same small corner of the world. It's the combination that's so difficult to dismiss. Lead researcher said, "This hypothetical discovery wouldn't prove that a king named Arthur pulled a sword from a stone. It wouldn't confirm the existence of Camelot or Lancelot, but it would do something arguably more important. It would prove that the legend is an echo of a lost truth, that in the violent twilight after Rome fell, real Celtic war leaders, men of noble blood, whose DNA we could now read, stood against the tide. It suggests that the myth of Arthur wasn't created from thin air, but was woven around the memory of a real ruling class, a real struggle for survival. Perhaps Arthur was never one man, but a title, a role passed between leaders of this very bloodline, the Artorius, the High King, the Bear of Britain. For centuries, we believed mythology and science were opposing forces, one of story, the other of fact. But here, they merge. Scientific evidence doesn't destroy the wonder of the legend, it deepens it, giving it roots in the cold, hard earth.